Good morning. Hey, what's up? This is Brian Kuzmar with Commercial Rare Coins and Precious Metals in beautiful Lauderdale by the Sea for our Friday, February 19th update. Look at that. I didn't even have to look at the calendar to know it was 19th. Actually, I did before I started the show. So, anyways, beautiful day out there. Hope your day's well. I know it's really cold up north. We're suffering through 77-degree temperatures here. And my gosh, I'd like to thank you all. I can't believe how many views I've gotten and how many new subscribers I've gotten. I've never expected this daily show to be more than just, something for my local customers and my local clients, a couple hundred viewers or something. And all of a sudden my viewership and the counts are climbing much higher than I ever expected it to be. Actually, at some point, I got to cover up those numbers because I'm going to start to get stage fright here. I'm going to be like a deer in the headlights, turn on the microphone, you're just going to hear silence. No, not really. As long as no one's listening to me, standing next to me, I can do these reports pretty easily, I think. But I got to not watch those counts. And don't worry, I'm never going to get a big head. So thank God it's frickin' Friday. My gosh, what a long week and torturous week for us precious metal peeps. I mean, if you haven't been in the business or the game as long as I do, these downs can really hit you and make you depressed. Some people depressed, but listen, money's nothing to get depressed about, folks, as long as you have your health. But here nor there, you can get a little down about these gold and silver prices pretty easily, when you see them down, especially, like I said, if you haven't been in the game as long as I have. But relax, folks. Don't worry about it. It's cool. I've seen this happen so many times before. The overall trend of gold and silver and precious metals is up. Don't let it discourage you. There's a lot of monkey hammering, a lot of bullshit that goes on in these markets, and they eventually go away, and things eventually will climb where they need to be. So, my headline says, gold and silver prices rigged. Well, of course they are. I've always said that these things are rigged, and I'm not the only one that said it. I used to be called a tinfoil hat wearer until the big banks started getting fined and started getting busted for manipulating gold and silver markets. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't the tinfoil hat wearer anymore, neither were the other guys. We were proven correct. And it's still happening, folks. Trust me. Probably on a legal basis, barely legal, I would have to say, on the gray areas. But it is absolutely, like all markets in Wall Street and all equity markets, they're rigged. They're rigged. And silver and gold markets are not that much different. And silver market is so small. In fact, they're so rigged that I'm really surprised that silver hasn't gotten hammered. But because of this physical squeeze, I really am absolutely certain that people buying physical, and with the economy closed down because, mines being closed, refiners being closed, mostly mines if you think about it, for the last year, supply is basically nil, just what's above ground right now. So they're in big trouble. I believe they're trying to cover these short positions in gold and silver, both metals, and they're using everything they can to keep the metals down. Listen, I'm going to give you a website here. If you haven't seen my shows before, you missed these particular ones. It's called GATA.org, GATA.org. O-R-G. They've been talking about this gold manipulation for decades now, at least 2 decades, I think, since I've been reading and listening to them. And these guys are really smart. They're smarter than most all the YouTube commenters like myself. They understand the gold and silver markets real well and what's happening in the background. And they do articles about it all the time. So here is the 2021 edition of Gold Market Manipulation. Please, if you watch my show, I want you to tag this, go to GATA.org, and I want you to read edition 1 and edition 2. If you're going to watch my show and we're going to talk about this stuff, I don't want you to think that we're just making this shit up. I want you to understand what's going on, where I get this information from, and that these people are pretty smart. You got to read this. It's part 1 and part 2. I'll gloss over a few things. And let's see, where did it's kind of hard to remember all this stuff. I don't script the show, so I'm sorry if I kind of get a little lost occasionally. Why Western banks have been rigging the gold market. It's because gold is a powerful, competitive international currency that, if allowed to function in a free market, will determine the value of other currencies. This is absolutely true, folks. The level of interest rates and the value of government bonds. So, Basically what they're saying, gold is a very powerful competitive international currency that if allowed to function in a free market, and a lot of people rely on it and trust it, it'll make these things more irrelevant. It'll make fiat currencies more irrelevant, interest rates less relevant, and the value of government bonds even more irrelevant. In a free market, gold's performance is usually the opposite of the performance of government currencies and bonds. A rising gold price signifies a weakening of a government's currency, at least the government's currencies in the countries that don't produce a lot of gold. So, I guess our country does produce some gold, but no less, we're a fiat currency. We've talked about fiat currencies hundreds of times. You're probably sick of me talking about it. No fiat currency in history, none have survived as long as the United States dollar. We are the longest surviving fiat currency in history, folks, in history. And that's only since 1971 when Nixon took us off the gold standard. So that's not a long time. And you see how the dollar's suffering. The dollar is not going to survive. Trust me on this. It's eventually going to get less and less. A dollar, instead of a dollar buying, a Coca-Cola like it once did, and it was even cheaper than that in my parents' days. It's going to take $5 to buy a Coke, or $7 to buy a can of Coca-Cola, or water is going to be like $5, or a gallon of milk instead of being $3 or whatever the heck it is now. I guess I'm out of date on that because I don't really drink milk, but it's going to be $20, and it's only going to get worse. No fiat currency has ever survived longer than the U.S. dollar, and we're not doing that well. I mean, it's surviving. We're buying stuff with it, but it buys less and less every year, and this is the power of gold and silver, and this is what they don't want you to know. And I don't mean a bunch of guys in a room, in black suits with black helicopters and black Suburbans that control the whole world. I'm just talking about bankers and Wall Street in general. They don't want this. They like having control. And if that's anything we've seen, especially with the Reddit deal over time here, we see that they like to have control, and control equals manipulation, folks. Let me move along there because, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record with this. We talk about this stuff all the time. I really want you to read this article. A little interesting thing down here. Indeed, here's another way. Indeed, rigging the currency markets, not looting by soldiers, was the primary mechanism by which the Nazi Germany expropriated occupied Europe during World War II. By force of arms was actually only a small part of the Nazi conquest. The rigging of the European currency markets, that is the gross distortion of currency exchange rates in Nazi Germany's favor, turned every citizen of an occupied country into an agent of the occupation wherever he used the money. This is the U.S. dollar, folks. This currency market rigging caused most manufacturing and agricultural production in the occupied territories to flow into Germany at the time. This is what the U.S. dollar has done, and blocked any return of flow from German production. Currency market rigging enabled Nazi Germany to run without consequences the same sort of fantastic trade deficits run in the recent years by the United States. Well, I'm not too fond of the comparison between the two governments, but the comparison between how it's done is very important to know here. So I really want you to read this article, please, please, and a triple please. It's very long, so I could go into it a long time, but I think if you are going to watch my shows and you're going to understand what I'm talking about when I talk about manipulation, you really need to read this. And I think I said you really need to read this at least 10 times in the last 5 minutes. And why? Because it'll make you smarter than the average bear. And that's really important because there's so much bullshit on YouTube. There's so much bullshit on media, on social media. There's so much bullshit on the TV, more on TV actually, if you ask me, about so many different things. And precious metals is not excluded from that. There's so much nonsense out there, so much stuff that's quoted that's just by smart people too, which blows my mind. So for the 12th time, please read this article. Because I want you to be the smarter bear, because a smarter bear will make smarter purchases, smarter decisions, and make more money and retire comfortably. Meanwhile, I show this quote all the time from one of my favorite authors, Robert Heinlein. Certainly the game is rigged. Don't let that stop you. If you don't bet, you can't win. All markets are rigged, folks. You're involved in a giant mass manipulation of markets, of thought, of ideas. There's a narrative painted for every one of us from the day we're born. But let me tell you one thing. Of course, the game is rigged. Once you awake to that idea that the game is rigged, and you start to look around from you, it can be a depressing thought. But here, think about this. The beauty of knowing that the game is rigged is knowing how it's rigged. And once you know how something is rigged, you can be the big winner here, and that's what we are. We're going to be big winners because we know how it's rigged. And how are you going to know it's rigged? You're going to read this today if you haven't read it before, and you are going to be smarter than the average bear, and smarter than most of the YouTube people out there that talk about precious metals, and certainly smarter than the guys at CNBC and Bloomberg. So, and the Wall Street Journal. They write terrible stuff about gold and silver, by the way. Everything's glittering except gold. I saw this article on GATA.org too. I think you should put this on your bookmarks. It's a good thing to read, and as I said, reading them will make you smarter than the average bear, I believe. This article was a little bit depressing when you read it. You have to feel a little sorry for investors in gold, as I said. However, I don't feel bad about this. I've been in this a long time. I know how this game works. I know how this game ends. And I know that this stuff is only temporary, especially these downs that we see like this. They're temporary, folks. Relax. But again, as he points out, a lot of people are probably a little depressed about this. They're kind of thinking, what the frick has happened? I've been in gold and silver for a while, and it certainly should have turned by now. But it hasn't yet. And that's the thing, folks. I'd like to tell you, yet is the big key word here. Trying to pick if we could pick the exact time when the gold and silver markets boom, you and I wouldn't even be sitting here. We'd make that play, we'd wait for it to happen, and then we'd make a fortune off it. One trade, if we just knew what was really going to happen down to the last couple pennies, dollars, or whatever it may be. But we don't. Timing is everything. And we know this is going to happen probably sooner than later now. I think a lot of us expected this to happen. I expected this to happen years ago. But you can never underestimate the power of the Federal Reserve. You can't underestimate the power of people that can print money, create money out of thin air. And it's pretty obvious. I mean, look what's happening with the stimulus and all this stuff. So this article kind of says central bankers and financial ministries have opened the cash sluices. This is exactly true. And what looks like a speculative boom is underway in many corners of the global financial markets. So this is just government printing of money. And what does government printing of money do? It makes money cheaper. Who is the longest surviving fiat currency in the U.S. dollar? I mean, in the world? And who is the world currency? The U.S. dollar. Who is printing endlessly right now? The U.S. dollar. This does not end well for the dollar. This does end better for gold and silver people. You just have to have patience and not worry about these ridiculous manipulations and downs and sideways markets. And we all want it to happen instantly, but it won't. It won't. It'll happen one day. You'll wake up, you'll look at gold markets, and you'll go, holy frig. So anyways, sorry, I didn't mean to get sideways there again. Gold has kind of not done well since about last 6 months compared to the S&P and other things. But think about the amount of money that's thrown into that. Gold and silver is a fractional the size of those markets. Watching Bitcoin hit 50,000 would be difficult for holders of gold. Many had expected the original speculative asset would prosper under the unusual market conditions of the past year. Well, of course, we all want it to happen faster, but you got to remember, folks, you and I and a lot of gold and silver people, we're such a small fraction of the investing community. I mean, we're very, very, very tiny, especially the silver market. We're all together. We're talking, and other guys that buy and sell gold and silver. But it really, 99 point something percent of Americans don't own any precious metals at all. I mean, we are really a small percentage. That wouldn't surprise me why people haven't piled into that metal yet. But when they do. And also, look what that short squeeze, just a little rumor on one of the Reddit forums did to the price of silver, and also just a little bit. It was amazing. So just wait till people start not trusting. Wait till people start getting awake like we are, okay? That's a big thing. Wait till even a small percentage and they start moving into precious metals. Wait till people get awake what electronic fiat is as well, besides the fiat in their pocket. They're going to want hard, tangible assets to protect themselves. Oh, gosh, boy, that was a long one. Hey, read GATA.org. Make sure you read that manipulation part. I don't want this to be another half-hour report, so I do apologize. I like Peter Schiff, big fan of him. Also like Zero Hedge. I do the $1 a day subscription. No, I'm not sponsored by them, but I've been reading them a long time, and you can read them for free. One of the things I like about Zero Hedge is it's free. You can read all these articles like I am, except you got to look at all the obnoxious ads that are on the page as well. But it's free. I pay $1 a day. I think it's worth it. Peter Schiff talks about the bond market is getting clobbered. Long-term interest rates are rising, and that is putting significant pressure on gold. Exactly, Peter. Exactly. This is what we were just talking about, and it's only temporary. The why the Fed is printing out this money, they're going to raise interest rates somewhat. However, they're just printing money endlessly. That's got to come home to roost at some point. They just can't do both at the same time. Peter talked about rising rates in the gold market in the recent podcast. He said that the rise in long-term yields is a function of inflation, and people seem to forget that inflation is good for gold. Absolutely, Peter says it here all in one thing, that inflation is good for gold. And I think that's what we're going to see at some point here. We're going to see interest rates go sub-zero, and we're going to also see inflation starting to raise its head in more obvious areas. We all know inflation is there, even though they tell us it's not or it's minimal. Just go to a grocery store. Just go to a grocery store and write something down and remember what it was last year or 2 years ago. Try putting your kids through college. What about medical insurance? Inflation's here for sure. Maybe not going out and buying a new flat screen TV. Maybe that's how they judge inflation. Because those get cheaper and cheaper every year. But the things you need to live, they don't get cheaper every year, and that's where you're going to see inflation. I also see big inflation in commodities this next year. Now, not just gold, silver, and platinum, but also corn and all those hard-type tangible assets. I think people are becoming awoke to digital assets or paper assets that are backed by nothing. Anyway, good article by Peter Schiff. This whole market is built on a foundation of cheap money, everything we have been talking about for a long time. I like Peter Schiff too. Actually, I supported him in his campaign when he ran for office. So I don't know why I said that. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I like Peter Schiff. And another article by GATA.org. They threw out a few good ones this week, and again, I recommend you read their website and bookmark it. Silver is so tight, it's about to blow sky high. Let's take a look here. Steer says that the bullion banks are desperate to induce contract holders to postpone delivery of metal, which supplies are very tight. Meanwhile, premiums on silver coins and bars have risen far above nominal spot prices. Absolutely true, folks. And for like the last article where the guy says, well, we should be depressed. This is why you shouldn't be depressed, because think about this. They're trying to tell people that own paper contracts. Remember, we've been talking about the paper is backed by nothing. They don't have the freaking metal to back this paper. This is the big issue, folks. It's like it's fiat. It's not backed by anything. It's fiat. So this is why you should be happy owning physical precious metals, and you should continue to add to your stacks. Good article again on GATA.org. I recommend you read that one as well. Don't want to go too far into it, but the headlines are pretty obvious, and this paragraph says it all. After saying all that, folks, I can tell you one thing. We know the game is rigged. We know how it's rigged, and we are going to be winners at it, and we are also going to be smarter than the average bear because of it. So, thank you. It's Friday, thank God, and gold and silver prices are absolutely rigged, but, relax. We're smarter than the average bear because, of course, we know the game is rigged, but when you know how it's rigged, man, you have huge advantage here. So, relax. Don't worry about a thing. Have a home brew this weekend. Enjoy your Friday, and keep checking prices with us and keep checking with my show here. I'll give you the heads up. And again, I'm telling you, relax. I've been in this a long time. Don't worry about it. Don't sell your positions. When you see these down markets, just add more to it. If you can, buy the friggin' dips. If not, just wade through it. Everything is going to be all right. And I hope there's some surf this week, looking at surfboards. There very well may be. Hang on one second. Let me see what the live cam looks like. Not that, I might have a little surf this weekend. So all you surfers out there, get your boards ready. Let's take a look at markets here real quick. I'm going to update this because I saw we were up a little bit today, and which is kind of encouraging. It was down in that 1760 range for a little bit. Gold was ranging since yesterday, 1761 to 1787. And again, the 1761 probably mostly in the evening markets where it once again probably got monkey hammered. It looks like New York is kind of opening up a little bit higher here. So let's see what happens. I still think, I looked at product prices today. Premiums are still stupid high on stuff. I'm going to stick with my call yesterday. I'm going to call gold probably silver closer to $30 an ounce. Give me 1 second. 27.50, 28.50, 29. The difference between the 150 and what I'm actually paying, which is 350, which is $2. There we go, 27, 28, 20. I'm calling about gold about 29.50 again, right in that range. And I'm going to call silver. Sorry, I didn't mean to do the math in my head in front of you. And I'm calling the real price of gold. Again, the premiums are just stupid, man. I'm going to call the real premium price of gold at least 18.20 or more. Yeah, I think it's about the same as yesterday. It's kind of floating sideways from where it was yesterday as well. But the real spot prices, in my opinion, are much higher than these ridiculous fiat paper prices that you're looking at. So I think that's really about it. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'd like to thank everybody, all the new subscribers. I'm kind of blown away by that. I thought this was just going to be a small local show with a few viewers, and wow, again, thank you. That's really about it. This is Brian Kuzmar with Commercial Rare Coins and Precious Metals. I forgot to put my, where is it? Here, I'm going to put it up here. Commercial Rare Coins. Where am I? I am right there. Precious Metal Dealers. I do it right in front of you. This is Brian with Commercial Rare Coins and Precious Metals. By the way, this is my website here. I've got some videos on there and some customer reviews at the bottom but what I already said with commercial rare coins, didn't I? I'm getting a little confused. In lovely Lauderdale by the Sea. Call me anytime at 954-493 between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. We are a brick and mortar store only, folks. I don't sell online. I don't sell over the phone. Sorry about that. Maybe someday I will. However, we do just local sales. Give me a call if you want to know what the best products and the best deals out there. I still think it's 1 ounce generics and 90% silver when you can find it. And I still think Maple Leafs are still the best deal out of the popular products. I don't like the price of Eagles. I'm sorry. I love to say buy American, but in this case, the premiums are much too high. And again, we're just buying gold and we're just buying silver. Don't pay excessive premiums if you don't have to. Well, that's really about it. If anything happens crazy today, I'll come back and do another show. If not, have yourself a beautiful weekend. I'll probably be out in the water getting some surf done or doing some fishing inshore for some snook or some tarpon here with my buddy. But other than that, I'll talk to you Monday. And again, hit the subscribe button if you haven't. And if you have, man, I appreciate it. Thanks again for watching. Talk to you soon.